everybody, welcome back to the Sewcialites 3 Quilts Along. This is a free quilt along hosted by Fat Quarter Shop. We are in week number 4. Today we're going to be making the Spring Wind block by Minky Kim. I'm making the 9-inch blocks, but all the blocks are built the same way. This block has a background and 3 different prints. Let's pull some fabrics. I'm working with 2 fabric collections by Laundry Basket Quilts, the Cloud 9 collection and the Little Sweetheart collection. I've got them kind of mixed up. The Cloud 9 and the Little Sweetheart both have some pale backgrounds. I already pulled aside these 3 because I've used them already in previous blocks. I want to find another pale print. This is almost red, and I don't want to find anything that's really symmetrical that I'm going to have to worry about lining up. The bigger prints like this, if I cut a square and then when we cut our little triangles, there might be some parts that get some of the pink and some that get all beige. So I don't want to use bigger prints. So we're going to set the bigger prints aside. I'm going to set that aside, too symmetrical. And it kind of leaves me with this selection here. I already flipped through everything, and I wanted something really pale for the background this time. To me, this stands out as the most pale out of all of these selections. That's going to be my background fabric for this block. The Little Sweetheart collection has pinks, golds, and reds, and I need 3 more colors, so I'm going to pick 1 from each color. These are the golds that are available. This one's really symmetrical. Here's another one that kind of has a big print. I don't think it's going to divide well. That leaves me with 1 choice for brown. I'm going to go with that one. I've got several choices for red, and how I pick is, again, I'm going to eliminate a big print or anything that I don't think is going to divide nicely when we cut our little square. Anything that is what I consider linear, where I have to worry about something facing the same direction, so no stripes. I'm going to pull out the polka dot because I have a polka dot. That leaves these 2 for red, and then let's look at the pink, and then we'll make a final decision for pinks and reds. No polka dots, no stripes. I'm going to start by pulling those out. There's that big print again that I don't think is going to divide very well, and this is the same as this, so I don't want that. That leaves me with these 2 choices for pink and these 2 choices for red. These are the same, so I don't want to pick both of these. When I look at the red, I'm leaning toward this. It's kind of random. It's got a tumbled print look to it, and it has a little bit of brown. That's going to go really nice with that. Let's use that for the red. And then I have 2 choices for pink. This just comes down to personal preference. Let's try one at a time and see how they look. There's that one. And that one. I like that one. The reason I like this one is the background is solid, and then you've got a simple clean print. This already has texture and kind of a fuzzy print. This has a lot going on. This also has a lot going on. There's the texture and the print. I think this is more solid, and it kind of gives your eye somewhere to rest. Let's try these. This is a great beginner block because we're going to cut squares, then we'll divide them, and then when we sew our pieces together, this is written so we'll be able to trim our pieces down, so the block's going to come together really nice. I need to cut 1 6-inch square from each of my fabrics for the 9-inch block. If you're making the 3 or the 6-inch, check your measurements. If you're comfortable cutting multiple pieces of fabric at the same time, you can do that, especially if they line up. This is a full fat quarter. Let's look at our other pieces. If I can line up some of the corners, then I can cut everything at the same time. You just sort of stack everything, and you don't have to cut them all at once. It's up to you. You can cut 1 square at a time, 2 square at a time, all the squares at a time. Let's look at our next piece. So for this piece, I don't want to cut it this way because I'll lose some of the fabric. You can just flip it right side down, and again, we're kind of lining up. And let's look at the red. I've got a nice clean corner on either edge. So I can cut all 4 of these at once. I can cut them a little bit bigger and trim them down. I have a 6.5-inch square ruler. My corners are relatively lined up. I'm even going to cut it a little bit bigger than the 6.5. I have a little extra here and here. What I'm going to do is cut this on 2 sides. Now I have 2 clean edges. I could have put this on a rotating cutting mat, probably would have been easier, but I'm just going to carefully turn it. And I don't need a 6.5-inch square, I need a 6-inch square. So I'm going to look for the 6-inch and the 6-inch. I know these 2 sides are straight because I just cut them. You can line up both of those sides at the same time. Nice and clean. Hold that in place. Now I have all 4 of my 6-inch squares. Now we need to cut corner to corner. The square ruler I'm using isn't long enough, so I grabbed a bigger ruler. I've got my Creative Grid 6.5 by 12.5 inch ruler. I'm going to carefully place it on each corner. Let's go ahead and cut. I'm going to pick up my ruler really carefully. I don't want to shift the fabric. If I did shift the fabric, then I wouldn't cut them all at once. I would cut them all one at a time just to make sure that I was cutting them correctly. I'm going to go corner to corner on the other side, and we'll cut the other direction. Now I should have 4 triangles for each of the fabrics that I selected. So I want to separate them out, and then we're going to look at the block layout. What I want to do is figure out which color I want to use where. I know A is this one. This is going to be my background fabric. Then when you look at the block, they have B in blue. So whatever color you pick for B is going to be on the outside of your block. These are the remaining 3 fabrics I have to choose from: the red, the brown, and the pink. I have to think about what color I want on the outside of the block. I don't think I want the red on the outside. I think that'll create too heavy a frame. So I'm going to set this aside for now. The A is going to be outside, so whatever I pick for B is going to be next to it. Pink. Pink is going to be my B. So this is my A. This is my B, and then I'll have a C and a D. Let's start by laying out one unit. In your instructions, this unit right here is going to be right there. If you're curious, the loud bird in the background you just heard is a Gila woodpecker. I'm in Arizona, and I have the Merlin Bird ID app. It's lots of fun. Look it up if you're interested in birds, and that was a Gila woodpecker. Here's my A, and here's my B. So then I have to decide C and D. They can go like this or like this. I like that. That looks much better with the pink and the red opposite each other, and then the brown and the cream opposite each other. You're going to make 4 of them. You're going to put them all together the same way. So I'm going to lay out all 4 on my design board. Before I head over to the sewing machine, I'm going to double check and make sure that they're all the same. I've got my polka dots across from my brown, pink on top, red on the bottom, pink on top, red on the bottom. We're ready to head over to the Featherweight. I'm sewing on a 1955 Singer Featherweight model 221. I have Aurifil color 2000 and a 1/4 inch guide foot on my machine. I've got everything on my design board. This is something that you can sew together without pins if you're comfortable. I like to use pins for this because sometimes if I don't use pins, I sew the wrong triangles together in the wrong spot, and then you have to unpick everything. What I like to do is fold in half. I need to sew here. I'm going to grab some pins and just put in a couple pins. Match it up as best as you can. Again, we're going to be trimming these to fit at the end. So if you notice your fabrics are a little bit off, it's really not going to matter. It's still going to fit. I want to sew here, line it up and pin. I'm going to lay it back down on the board like that. I'm going to do that for all of my blocks. Everything is pinned. You can see that not everything matches up exactly. Again, it's going to be fine. What I'm going to do when I sew these is I'm going to sew that one, this one, and then this bottom one here. I've got my magnetic pin holder here ready to catch my pins. Let's sew everything together. 1/4 inch seam allowance. All my pieces are sewn together, and everything was chain piece, so they're all still hooked together. What I'm going to do is keep 2 pieces together. So there's one of our pieces, and there's 2, because you made 4, 3, and 4. So here's one of our little 4 squares. This is the lightest color of my block. That's my background. So when I press this piece, I'm going to press it this direction, and you don't have to worry about the little piece up here. They call that a dog ear. You can leave it for now because we're going to trim our block. So since I'm pressing this one this way, I'm going to press this one the opposite direction. What that's going to do is allow our seams to nest. They'll lock into place really nice, and it'll be easy to sew that other seam. If you're comfortable with finger pressing, you can do that, but I'm going to give these a good press on my iron. These are all pressed and back on my design board. This gives you another chance to double check your layout, make sure all your fabrics are in the right spot. All 4 of these should look the same, and then you can put them together. Your seams are going to nest and then pin. Now you'll see that my fabrics don't match up exactly right here. Anything that's under 1/4 of an inch, doesn't matter, it's going to get caught in your seam allowance. Just make sure you've got everything pinned nice and straight. So I've got all 4 of mine pinned and ready to sew. Let's go ahead and sew those seams. These are all sewn together. So I want to trim and separate these, and we're going to press these. It doesn't look like there's pressing instructions. This is going to be another, it's up to you how you want to do this. I don't like to press open. Some people like to press open. When I look at this, this is the lightest color fabric, so I'm going to press toward the dark. I'm going to press that direction. I've got all 4 of these pressed. They look good. I'm going to set 3 aside. You want to refer to your pattern. This step right here gives you the trim measurements. So if you're making the 3-inch, the 6-inch, or the 9-inch. I want to measure these and make sure that mine are 5 inches square. I have a 5-inch square ruler. That's going to be the easiest way to measure this. It's nice because it's got a little bullseye in the center, and I can line that up, and you can see how I've got a little bit extra on all sides all the way around. I'm going to be able to trim that. I am going to grab my rotating cutting mat. It's going to make that easier. If you don't have a 5-inch square ruler, grab whatever ruler you have. Let's say all I have is the 6.5 by 12.5. Here's how I would use this. You know it's 5 inches square. So the halfway point is going to be 2.5 inches. We've got 1.5, 2.5. So here's 2.5. You want the 2.5 inch line to cross the center, and this ruler happens to have this lovely 45-degree line right there. So you can slide it down and make sure it lines up with your seam like that, and your 2.5 needs to go over that center part. There we go. It just takes a little bit of fussing. So your 2.5 is crossing the center of the block where all your little triangles intersect. The 45 degrees lined up with your seam, and then you can trim this side and this side. Let's just do one like this, okay? So we'll trim this side and this side, and then we're going to flip it around. We've got 2 straight sides. I'm going to line it up the same way, and then I'll double check my measurements to make sure I'm at 5 inches. So I've got my 2.5 crossing the center, the 45-degree line, and then you can look here. This is 4.5, this is 5. It's a little bit off. I want it nice and straight. So now that's straight because we're going for 5 inches. So your 5 inch, your 5 inch. The halfway point intersects because we measured it correctly when we cut the first 2 sides. The line is all lined up. Let's go ahead and trim the other 2 sides. And just for fun, let's take the 5-inch ruler. Looks good. So that's one way to trim. If you've got the larger ruler, let's go ahead and use the rotating cutting mat and trim one this way. That way you see 2 different ways to trim your blocks. Going to line up the dot in the center, and the same thing on this ruler. It's got that 45-degree line. Hold that in place. I've got extra all the way around. I want to really hold it down. I don't want this ruler to move. Need to be careful. We'll go ahead and turn it. Make sure I'm lined up here and here. And there's my 5-inch square. So that's 2 ways you can cut these. Do whatever's easiest for you. Use whichever rulers you have. I need to cut the last 2. Once you have everything cut, grab your picture. You want to lay everything out according to the picture. The top left corner, the A, is on the outside. The lower left, color B, which for me is pink, is on the outside like that, and color A is here at the bottom. The next corner, lower right, color B is at the bottom, which is pink, and color A is out to the side. And then for upper right, color B is over here and color A is at the top. You can see it makes a pinwheel in the center. I'm really glad I've got the red here in the center. And honestly, if you decide you don't like the way the A, B, C, and D's look, just play with them until you like the way it looks. I could change it like that. I could have the white in the center. We could put the pink and the polka dots in the center. That's really interesting. That gives you a really bright center and kind of a dark, heavy frame on the outside. Turn everything again. That has the red on the outside, pink in the center. That's okay. I do think my favorite layout is the original layout that has the red in the center for the pinwheel. I feel like the red kind of anchors the center of the block. That looks really good. I'm going to pin this while I'm over here. I like to put this underneath because pins stick to the design board, and I like to sew row and row. You could do column. It really doesn't matter. And the pins help make sure that you keep everything straight and you don't spin anything the wrong way. Now when I go to pin this, I've got this seam going one direction, this seam going the other direction. So that's going to help that lay together really nice. Put a pin right there, and then let's look up at the top. Didn't work out that way at the top. I've got them both going the same direction, but that's okay. You can lay them down, you can feel it, make sure it's good. Go ahead and pin, and then I'm going to add another one in the center, and then I'll pin the bottom one. I've got these pinned. Let's head over to the machine. Those are sewn together. You probably saw me use the scissors. I used them kind of like a stiletto because there was part where we had a little bit of a thicker seam where they didn't nest. They're both going the same direction. This just helped hold it down as it was going under the presser foot. I want to press these. I'm going to take a look at my blocks. I know my red is my pinwheel. Got one there, and that looks correct. See how it makes the pinwheel? What I'm going to do is press this toward the red triangle and then press this one toward the red triangle. Put them together, pin, and sew the last seam. I've got the last seam sewn. This is up to you if you want to press open or if you want to pick a side and press to a side. I'm just going to pick a side and press to a side. I'm going to press this and then we'll go over to the table and we'll measure. Here's my completed block. It looks great. I love the way it turned out. We need to see if it measures 9.5 inches square. I have a 10-inch square ruler. You can tell I've been collecting rulers for a while. When things go on sale over the holidays, if rulers are included, I'm buying rulers. This looks really good. Oh, maybe like a hair's worth of short. This looks great. This doesn't need any trimming. Don't need to do anything else with that. Your block is probably going to come out just like that, and that's because the pieces were oversized and we trimmed before we put them together into our final block. This is block 4. Last week we did our house, block 3. You can see it has a note that says small house. It came out a little small. Block 2 and block 1, which has a clip on it because that side is short. I'm keeping track of everything. Now I did decide that I'm going to go ahead and do the official finishing layout. Let me show that to you. This gives you a good picture of what the layout looks like with different colors, and then they give you a little grayscale one. You can actually color this in if you want to see what it will look like. We're going to need what they call a setting fabric. I believe that's the rectangle, and you can see these units are a rectangle and 2 squares. I ordered fabric for that, but it's not here yet. You're going to have to tune in next week when we do block number 5, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to piece together these blocks that are going to help with the final layout. Thank you so much for stitching out block 4 for Sewcialites 3 with me. Let me know how your blocks turned out. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them below. Please like, subscribe, share with your friends. And let me know if you're already thinking about your next project after Sewcialites. I'm thinking I'd like to continue with some regular quilting on the channel. I have a lot of embroidery and cross stitch. Right now the other regular quilting project I have going on is the Quilted Farm Girl. I'll link that playlist playlist for you below. I'm stitching these together at a beginner level. We're going really, really slow. So if you're new to quilting and you like this quilt, it may seem overwhelming, but I do think it's doable. I will say my bees came out a little bit wonky, but it's going to be okay. Thank you again for watching. I'll see you next week for the next block of Sewcialites 3. Bye, everybody.